Wow, that was easy.
It is 5 after 6. I will now call to order the June 22nd, 2015 meeting of the East Hampton Conservation Commission. Are there any public concerns or non-agenda items? All right. Come on in. You just completed it?
Perfect.
You're fine. All right.
Wait,
Non-agenda item?
I don't know if it's on, I haven't got the agendas.
Tell me the topic and I'll tell you.
It's old, the Brickyard Brook, the old business about the siltation problem on East Street. We
That
had a
is.
question about it, it's been a long time since they said they would have started it and it hasn't been started yet. Supposed to have been started last fall.
Who's they? The city or what's?
Yeah, who's the they? Because last I recalled, and we'll touch on this briefly and then maybe bring it up later because we've got a few hearings. We went out there, we all went out there, including Jim Gracia, city engineer.
When was this?
Have we started recording?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think I mentioned that the meeting was being recorded, but the meeting's being recorded. Sorry for the delay. This was last summer?
Oh, yeah, I mean, a lot of things happened since then.
Well, nothing's come before the commission since
Yeah.
then. So we're not in that situation, we're not in a proactive position other than to be open to communication from either the city or a property owner. And we haven't heard anything from anyone.
Our neighbor there, Ron, called me the other day and
Thank you.
said the situation there is getting worse and it flooded his, last rain, it flooded his fence.
Okay.
And it's definitely deteriorating things there, so.
I mean, as I understood it, Jim Gracia acknowledged that that might be road sand. And so I would say he needs to contact Board of Public Works or Jim Gracia through the city engineer's office.
Well, try it again, but.
Yeah.
I just keep putting it off, that's all, I know.
Understood. We're not in a position to be dictating what happens
Well,
there.
if worst comes to worst, I'll steal Bernie Gall's tractor and make a trench myself.
That's fantastic.
The meeting is being
Bernie
recorded.
Gall.
Okay, so, understood. We can continue the conversation. It's a longer conversation than
Well,
this.
no, it's not a conversation anymore.
Oh, there you go. All right, are there any other non-agenda items? No. All right, moving on, we will now continue the public hearing for the Notice of Intent, Mass DEP file number 151283, Lathrop Retirement Community of East Hampton, 100 Bassett Brook Drive, regarding invasive plant species management activities within bordering vegetated wetlands and the 100-foot buffer zone. Would any representatives from Lathrop who'd like to come to the table, come to the table? And just for the sake of the minutes, and anyone here who hasn't been here, reintroduce yourself.
I'm Barbara Walvard, the chair of the Lathrop Land Conservation Committee.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Quite all right, you can silence that. Anyone else need to silence their phones or double check?
No one called.
Until 5 minutes from now.
That's when they call.
Okay. So, I'll do a quick recap. On the evening of Monday, June 15th, were we all
We
there?
were all there.
Except Mr. Buttrick.
607.
Minus Buttrick. Okay. We performed a site visit to view the areas that were in question regarding Wetlands Protection Act and invasive species management. And does anyone have any questions from that site visit? So, in reviewing documents for tonight's meeting, I was looking at the Mass DEP file number comments. And there was one comment that we need to address, and that is with regard to the quantification of bordering vegetated wetland impacts as a result of the management activities. Because the number provided on the form, I don't think is representative of the discrete work that you'll be doing, but perhaps it is, and perhaps the areas are bigger than I recalled, but the area was estimated at 38,332.8 square feet.
Is that about 35 acres? How many
No.
acres?
No, that's less than an
Oh.
acre. That's less than an acre. So in terms of impact,
Mhm.
so unless you're a limited project, we can't authorize anything over 5,000 square feet. And we could either look at this from yes and no are both checked on that line. So we need to figure that piece out.
Okay.
And the alteration isn't the whole wetland, because the whole wetland is an invasive species. So it's, and I'm all right with an estimation of, you're taking an invasive species out of, 1 square foot.
Okay.
So if you had to put a best guess on an aerial extent, or
Of the jurisdictional
yes,
land?
just in the
So
vegetated
100
wetlands.
100
No, not the 100-foot buffer.
Not, okay.
No, just in the bordering
wetland?
vegetated wetland, yeah. If you, and you can think on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe we'll have to get back to you on that, or is it necessary for us to provide that estimate right now in order for you to act?
Well, we would
Yeah.
need it before we could close,
Okay.
I think. But that
Can I
said,
estimate high?
yeah, estimate 5?
Yeah, let's estimate 5.
Okay.
That's the highest you can go, right, unless we fall
Unless you're a
into
limited
different-
project and you want to do ecological restoration.
Which is what? What does that mean?
It means I need to set things.
Set a
It
regulation.
means a bunch more forms and checklists and stuff, right?
Okay, let's estimate 5,000 square feet.
Okay.
That limits you to 5,000 square feet, so if you need to do more, then you would not be able to under this.
Right.
And so this would be removal of 5,000 square feet of actual wetland.
Right. Actual wetland, actual footprint.
Okay,
So if you had 500 multi-floor rows,
Right.
taking up 2 square feet each,
Mhm.
that's 1,000 square feet.
mm-hmm, yeah,
So if that can help you visualize.
right. I think as you saw when you
Mhm.
walked the land, when you actually get to the wetland part,
Mhm.
it's not
No, it's the,
heavily invaded.
a lot of it's the
with-
buffer zone.
With stuff that we
Mhm.
intend to remove.
I think what was quantified here was the footprint of the wetlands
Mhm.
themselves and
Right,
not the
right,
actual
okay,
work.
Right, right.
Um,
Let's go 5,000 feet,
Okay.
and if we go over that,
We'll stop.
We'll
we'll stop, and then we'll go for more.
We'll stop.
Another.
Sound okay?
Yeah, I
Back
think
there?
that
Group?
that's, I don't know. that
And
we
really,
have more than
it's the
that.
buffer zone that has
Yeah, it's the
the
buffer zone.
greatest concentration.
Yeah.
Haven't seen it.
So, then the other question is, it is within the commission's discretion to, normally an order of conditions is valid for 3 years, but it's within our discretion for certain projects to issue a permit that's valid for up to 5 years.
That would be great.
So does anyone else, given the nature of, the ongoing nature of the work, does anyone?
Not a problem.
See a problem?
Yeah, I see no problem with that at all. After the 5 years, can they come back and re-up, or would they have to reapply completely?
No, they could read.
They could re-up for another
They
3 to
could
5
renew.
years. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
And it would be within the commission's discretion to renew for whatever, reasonable
Up to 5
time.
years.
Yeah, I believe so. The only caveat would be that the request to extend the order of conditions, at least under the current regulations, would have to be submitted at least 30 days before the order is set to expire. And sometimes that becomes a tripping point.
Right.
Um,
So put it on a calendar somewhere.
Exactly, set the reminders 1 year in advance.
4 years, 11 months.
Right, phone will go off.
I wasn't going
That
off
was
since
the
the last
meeting.
Okay. I have a piece of paper here. All right, so does anyone else have any comments they want to add?
We had conditions maybe of time of mowing, time of year.
Right, so Time of year for mowing, it's after August. I'm looking at you, Jessica, because you seem to ping on this too. There's a date recommended for grassland bird species, and I know you said the mowing occurs in the fall. But I guess it's a late summer, early fall mowing date to avoid the breeding nesting
Yeah.
season. So only because sometimes the people involved don't have the benefit of that initial knowledge, I'll include a date based on specific grassland bird habitat management guidelines, just not because that's your goal, but because that's a consideration as well.
We already have a formal plan with our landscaper for that schedule of mowing, for them to mow in late October or early November.
Great.
And a third of all of our fields, wet or not, mow them a third each time,
Okay.
a third each year.
Okay. So some
And
of
that's to protect grassland birds. you
grassland
say?
bird habitat, nesting habitat,
Thanks.
so they don't go down with birds.
Yeah, I get it. Make sure I had the right face.
So, pretty standard things have to do with pre-construction notification requirements. I think
These
one
will
of-
all be.
And this will all be
attached.
written
You don't have to
down
write.
Okay.
and attached. I
Okay.
just want to mention it.
Okay.
Some of the things we talked about pertain to how the work would be performed, and there was specific consideration for the work within a vegetated wetland boundary, bordering vegetated wetland boundary, and the first 10 feet. And I know
Yep.
Politan has talked about considerations relative to the use of herbicides
Right.
in their application. I would also like to include a condition about mechanical or mechanized equipment in or within the 10 feet of wetland boundaries and prohibiting its use. So, for instance, a tractor doesn't get
No.
driven through.
No.
And again, this is,
Yep.
so,
That's their practice.
and that's their practice. And then, the sequence is, hand pulling and or use of hand tools. Because I know Joan mentioned sort of wrenches.
Wrenches.
Yeah.
Root wrenches. No disposal of vegetative matter within BVW or 10 feet of the BVW boundary. Use of herbicides for discrete spot treatment only. No spray broadcast,
Right.
but allowing the use of that wipe application. And in addition to pre-construction notification, also notifying at least 48 hours in advance of use of herbicides.
Okay.
And that can be an email to the commission's account.
Okay.
So it need not be an onerous formal
Yep.
process.
So, you're thinking also, when you say broadcast, you mean just kind of spraying a whole
Right.
area like that? But they
Right.
can come in with their wand, with their little cover on it and spray a rose bush and a rose
Yes,
bush.
I think that's,
what
yeah,
they want
or
to do.
cut stem treatment or the
Mhm.
wipe.
Yeah.
So long as it's discreet.
Yep. Yeah, that's what
and-
they planned.
And, right, because why would they want to take out the native vegetation around it? And then I guess the last thing that I have on my list is an annual reporting requirement, just a recap of work done in the year, methods, and progress in general. Does anyone else?
And what Politan normally does is a photographic
Mhm.
record of change from one time to another. They do not do a more formal inventory of plants along a line or something like that.
So whatever written documentation summarizing activities would be on the land committee.
Yeah.
And then, I understand, I believe you talked about Politan being under contract for 2 years?
3 years.
3 years. So if it's a 5-year plan and/or there are activities that the land committee and other residents are performing, that would be included in
Yep.
your reporting and your photo documentation
Yeah.
and not just Politan's.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Are there any other comments, questions from the commission? Are there any questions or comments from the public? Would anyone care care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the notice of intent for Lathrop Community.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. We will have the paperwork for you in 21 days. All right, thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much.
Will it be online, or will it receive
Um,
an email?
Well, we can either mail it to you or someone can pick it up. The original has to be recorded,
Right,
so
okay.
you will get the original one way or another, and you can just, I can let you know when it's ready, and you can let me know how you'd like to receive it.
Okay, because they're eager to start work. Can they start work on, before we get the paperwork or not?
No. We'll try to expedite the paperwork.
All right, we'll be in touch.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Moving on, we will now open the hearing for a notice of intent, Mass DEP file number 151284, filed by Pascomet
I'm sorry,
Conservation.
can we go back? We did not, in the motion, we didn't say 5 years. We just said a
It was
motion
in
was made.
discussion.
Okay, so we don't have to, so 5 years is okay?
I think we're good. It's in the notes.
Okay,
I think
I'm
we all
good with it.
understood that.
okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm sorry, go ahead. It's okay.
Where was I? By Pascomet Conservation Trust for the parcel between 405 and 417 East Street, map 149, lot 54, Mutter Field. The scope of work has been amended since this agenda was prepared. I believe it is now for the construction of improved and ADA compliant parking and accessible trails, period.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a letter to submit to you.
Thank you. I have a copy that I'll share.
Copy to... And I can explain a little bit about that, if the commission would like to hear that.
I guess,
And,
however you'd like to lead into this.
okay, and I also have the certified
Oh, thank
mailings
you.
to all the abutters.
Is this the letter that you sent?
Yes.
I guess I can address the amendment to the notice of intent. Mark Stenson from DEP sent emails that were copied to you regarding the proposed work to repair the existing 36-inch culvert. And at this point in time, the trust doesn't have the money within the budget to fully repair the culvert that is in the brook crossing here, to comply with all the standards that the EP has adopted. Also, Army Corps of Engineers is now taking jurisdiction on all waterways and culverts, so we would have to do a filing with Army Corps of Engineers for the repairs, and it was felt that that work was great to get done under this notice of intent, but not necessary, and felt that the monies would be better spent other portions of the project.
There are two culverts there, right, Mark?
And there are two culverts, and I have pictures.
The one they're talking about is the upper one?
The upper one. So there's a lower culvert that's a 12-inch culvert pipe. Let me revise the plan. But on the corner of this is a detail of it. So there is a 12-inch culvert pipe that is below a 36-inch culvert pipe. So during low flows, the flow of the water goes through the 12-inch pipe. 12-inch pipe is pretty well silted in, so it's not clean. It's probably 3/4 filled in with silt and soils. So not a lot of, not the entire culvert, 12-inch culvert pipe is utilized. So that years and years ago, Mr. Mutter put in another 36-inch pipe above it to handle the flows so that the crossing wouldn't wash out. So we'd like to just take that out of the project so that we're only dealing with buffer zone work at this point in time for this. So that's kind of the first item, housekeeping item. And I sent a copy to Mark Stenson at DP, and he's out of the office until the end of till July 1st.
So I guess, do you
So-
want to give an overview of
Sure.
the rest of the project? For the
Sure.
buffers?
So I'd just like to describe the project as being proposed as shown on these plans. So that the project involves the construction of a new visitors parking lot that is going to be off of East Street to allow for handicap accessibility to the trails. And so that we have 2 designated handicap parking spaces, and then we have 4 standard parking spaces. So a total of 6 cars can be parked off of East Street to facilitate it. The use of the site is only seasonal. There's no wintertime use. They're not going to plow the parking area. So it's only spring, summer, and fall during that time. The project involves not only the parking lot, but in order to comply with DEP stormwater management policy, we had to put in a stormwater basin and rain garden. Kind of better shows up. Well, let me just back up one step. So within the property, there is an intermittent stream or brook that crosses from Mr. Pincus's property. That's located to the south, goes through the property, goes onto land of Mr. Gaulis, who's here tonight, comes back onto the trust property, and then continues northerly onto other land of the trust.
Is that Brickyard Brook, or is that a tributary?
No,
to
it's a
Brickyard
tributary.
Brook?
Brickyard Brook is over here.
Okay, that one is, okay. I
Right.
remember.
Right. There are 3 small bordering vegetated wetland areas on it. They're outlined in pink. There's a bordering vegetated wetland on the easterly side of the brook. That's on the south side of the existing trail that goes through the property. There's a small area over here on the northerly side, and then there's a small bordering vegetated wetland within the field area. This is all mowed as field. The outline of the tree line shown in the green throughout the project.
What are the red dash lines?
The red dash lines are the 100-foot buffer zones.
Okay.
So the 100-foot buffer zone from the brook and the bordering vegetated wetland is the red line. And then from the brook over here, it's 100-foot buffer zone over this way. Forward.
Do you happen to know the contributing drainage area to that tributary off the top of your head?
I don't know that for sure. It comes, I believe, further down East Street. East Street kind of curves around. There's a culvert underneath East Street, and it's a tributary coming off the mountain. One of those typical swales and streams that come down from Mount Town, being over here. So in order to comply with the Wetlands Protection Act, Stormwater Management Policy, and ADA for handicap accessibility, more of a blow up on the second sheet here that shows it a little better. We've developed a parking field that allows for cars to enter and exit off of East Street, coming into, like I said, 4 standard parking lot and 2 handicap parking spaces. The handicap spaces would be over here. Because of the grade transition coming down, we have to put in a ramp, and a ramp under ADA standards can't be any more than 30 feet in length before you have to have a level course for resting. So that comes down 30 feet here to a level landing, another 30 feet here, has a switchback, another ramp, and then comes and crosses the brook where the existing path goes right now. So that with this project, we don't need to cut any trees,
Nothing over.
just brush, small brush and saplings will be cut in this area, and we're maintaining the existing path, which is out there today. Stormwater management, in order to comply with that, we have a stone infiltration trench coming down into a rain garden. Then it flows over to emergency overflow and down towards the wetland area. The basin and the infiltration trench has been designed to meet the 2, 10, and 100-year storm event, so no discharge from the basin for any one of those storm events for that. As you can see, there's quite a bit of grading, so we have fill in order to level the parking lot off. It's quite a grade transition from E Street down to the brook area. So we have to provide fill material to be brought in and to construct all this. We're also trying to, the work is very close to the wetland boundary, trying to minimize the impact to those resource areas, but also comply with all the other regulations that are out there.
What's the closest, that area is clearly the closest you get to the wetland boundary. What are the, what's the
we have silt
setback
fence.
there?
We have silt fence, so we are about 2 feet off with our erosion control barrier from the wetland boundary within the project itself. So we are tight, very tight.
Can you give me a flag? Like,
Sure.
From what to
flag
what?
number, let's see, this is 101, 102, 103. So we're 2 feet off. And then we've got from the silt fence line to the path itself is 5 feet. So there's going to be a
Okay, so the
vegetated
silt
area.
fence to the wetland is 2
2
feet,
feet.
but the silt fence to the path is
Is
5
5.
feet, so you're 7 feet off.
Correct.
In total or 5 feet in total?
No, in total.
7 in total.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Yep.
Through there. So because we want to get some grass vegetation between the silt fence to be established,
Yep.
so that everything.
What's the nature of that wetland? Is it forested? Is it
No, it's-
herbaceous?
No, it is part of the mowed meadow, maintained mowed meadow for this whole field. Mr. Mutter used to, when he owned it, have horses out here in this part of the pasture. Or this was part of the pasture. This was all horses out in here. And this is mowed meadow, so it's a wet meadow.
Do you by chance just for minutes have numbers for those wetland areas, 1, 2, and 3 or something, or just any designation between the 3 wetlands?
They're wetland flags.
Okay, that's fine, yeah.
1-01.
Alright,
wetland.
yeah, I got them in here, thank you. Is it 1-01 and then
Yep.
1-02? Okay. got it.
And 1-03.
Yep, thank you.
For that. The work to install the trails, once we get over, because we have to fill over the brook crossing, again, maximum slope without a railings is 5%. So we have to fill over at 5% over the brook until we get to the other side. And then the grade starts to come back up, so we don't have to fill. The paths themselves, there's no excavation needed. what is done is they form the edges of the path with boards, and there's details on the plan of it. And then they add material between the boards. And that is shown on, too far. So it's shown on L 4.0, whereas this is the existing ground. And there are, excuse me, 3-inch wide by 6-inch blocking in wood that line the edge of the trails, and then stone material, and the surface material was brought in. There's a geotech fabric that goes down, and the trails are placed on top of the existing ground. So there's no excavation of material once we get past the brook crossing, unfortunately.
Can you go back to an enlarged section of
Sure.
the brook crossing? Is that the most enlarged?
Yeah, that's probably the most enlarged one we have.
So how far
Right
back,
here.
the toe, the erosion controls and the toe of what you're proposing to stabilize that fill, what are the setbacks from where
So-
the stream daylights?
Right,
On
I
either
guess
side.
on this plan here, what we've done is brought the erosion control barrier as tight as possible to the path. So we've got about 2 to 3 feet from the edge of the path to the erosion control barrier across here, to really tighten it up through there. Then, from that point, I can tell you, approximately from that to the wetland boundary is another 3 feet or so.
Is that wetland boundary flag where the stream daylights?
Yes,
Okay.
right. That's
So
wetland flag 2-105 on one side and 2-106 on the other side of the stream.
So was only one side of the stream delineated?
For this side here, because
Yeah.
that's the grading, yes. This side here, it's a very steep bank, so that the bank is really one and the same through this side over here.
And those are all existing trees that you're showing? Or-
These are all new plantings.
Okay.
So there's a series of new plantings that are shown on the plan, so that around the whole area we have, haven't totaled them up, but for instance, there's eastern red cedar that are planted, there's 18 of them along the northerly boundary line from, setting back from East Street to the silt fence line. There's an existing 36-inch tree out here that's going to be retained, but then we're going to add 3 new shade trees and other plantings and shrubs and blueberry, high-bush blueberries, arrowwood, and winter holly, and
I guess the only one I'm not familiar with is the European cranberry, but I can look that up. The others are all native.
The cranberry,
Yeah.
if I may interject now, you're probably gonna wanna get rid of that planting because it's an invasive species.
That's why I wanted to look into it.
It's an
The others are all
invasive
native,
species.
so-
Anytime you see European, it should like,
Well, non-native doesn't
Right, but this is-
necessarily mean
yeah,
invasive.
but this is
but-
invasive.
okay,
So
so
I
we
will-
can
I
change
will-
that out. We could definitely change that out.
You might want to try,
You know,
there's a high bush, there's a cranberry.
there's an American
Yeah.
cranberry that could easily
Be
take
Uh,
its place, and there's recommendations of several trees, but if you wanna go with a cranberry, there is an American that's our native.
Yeah.
Pretty similar, a little bit smaller bush, but It's not an invasive species. There's some information about it. Let me,
Actually, I'm sorry to just interject, but I have a package that just hand out to the commission if you just want to pass it
Why
around.
don't we wait on
Let's
that?
hold
Wait-
off
yeah,
until
Wait till
we-
Mark reads.
yeah,
it.
just let it get
Yeah, thank you, and we'll wait on that till we've
Yeah.
gone through our questions and, there's a lot of grading. Can you talk about the rain garden a bit?
Sure. What we have is being proposed in this area here is a vegetated rain garden.
Can you direct me
Again.
to the details of that
Sure.
on the plan? Is it on the plan sheet?
They are on sheet number...
It's on the- do you want this? Vegetated cover, is it on sheet L3?
L3. All right. So there's two details on L3 that, relative to that. There is a detail of the stone infiltration trench that runs from, so the storm water first enters the stone infiltration trench from the parking area, acts to pre-treat and remove TSS from before it enters into this rain garden and basin area. And then there's a detail of the materials to be done through the rain garden area. It's all vegetated. And then the riprap overflow from the rain garden itself. And there's the vegetated covers specifications on that. Again, these two details will be removed.
What
I was gonna
vegetation?
say we'll need some revised
Yeah.
plans excluding the
Correct, the pipe. Pipe
the
work.
culvert work.
What vegetation is inside? It looks like, it doesn't look like a rain garden to me as much as
It's like
it's
a-
just a depressed, like a.
Yeah, I'm
It's
missing
not
a
a
rain
true,
garden.
it's not a true rain garden because we couldn't put an under drain in it like a true rain garden has. It's kind of meant to be a stormwater basin, but it's vegetated and collecting the water, so it's going to be plantings within it, but it's not.
Are we talking
Yeah, I
about
see.
grasses and?
Grasses,
I
sedges,
see mixes.
blue stem grasses and hedges, and sedge, grass and so forth within that.
Right.
Right, L3.
Oh, I'm looking at something else.
Oh, sorry.
What did-
So it's
But we
more
can
of a
give more
vegetated
detail on that.
basin is what it is, really.
on the plantings within that area in itself.
So the parking area is not all paved, right? Or is it?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No,
That's what I thought.
it's gravel. So within it, the only area, the crosshatched area is paved. So when you enter from East Street, this is paved. This is all gravel. And then the handicap spaces themselves are paved. And that's it. And then the walkway itself, where it's ramped, is paved, because of the 80% slope, because of the ramp designation at 8%.
And so there's the parking lot, then the infiltration trench.
Correct.
And so that's basically going to serve like a pipe kind of with water flowing through the
There's
stones.
no pipe in
along
it, it's just a stone.
Right, yeah. That'll be
Sheet
the,
three.
Hydraulic
it'll
connection.
be the
Correct.
conduit.
Yeah, it will. It'll be the conduit for the rainwater to enter into the stone. And then for anything that is a more heavier rain event that can't handle into the stone infiltration trench will then go into the basin.
And says, how is the pitch on the parking lot to get,
So,
is there
right.
coating or anything?
Yeah. The pitch, the grading is all this way for the parking lot. You can see the contour lines.
Oh, yeah.
98.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 96, 95, 94, 93, 25. So it's all pitched towards the trench.
And is there curbing? Or
No curbing.
No curbing.
No curving being proposed through here.
And I don't have a copy of the stormwater report with me. Did you happen to do? I know it didn't look like you did a test pit, but did you happen to like poke a hole with an auger just to see where groundwater was in that footprint of that?
Well, because we're filling so much of it,
Oh, yeah. How high are?
so
how are you?
that we felt that, we're going to be above any groundwater conditions, because the trench itself, I look at the sheet here, is only 3 foot in depth, and we're filling within that area. So that, and because of the topography, it really drops off in order to do that. So we are filling, I would say, I have to look at what this is 86, so that we're filling probably 2 to 3 feet in itself, at the worst case down here, and then tapering off to no fill up this end. So approximately half of it is in the existing topography, and then some fill material here, because we have to create the basin, and the grading coming off of the path down towards the basin itself.
The bottom of the basement's about 3.5 feet below grade. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep. So the bottom of the basin is at elevation 81.5. The existing contour now, right through here, is 85.
What's the elevation of the wetland boundary?
And the wetland boundary down here, here's 77, 76, and then, of course, the stream bed is considerably deeper. Here's elevation 80 way down here.
And what's the lowest elevation of the?
81.5?
81.5.
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess it'd be nice to have some sense of where groundwater might be in the footprint of the basin. You ever water in your basement, Gary?
I never did, but I have a nice drainage perimeter around the house, so anything that would get in the basement is caught by that, and I have a sump pump in there as well, so my basement does stay dry.
We've had a couple of stormwater features on different projects where we've had problems with that recently, Mark. Not just the bank.
I do hear my neighbors get water in their basements, but this wouldn't affect this plan at all because they're far enough away.
Right.
Whatever problem they have is not related to this project.
Yep.
But we can do some.
It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but
No, we can do it with auger,
yeah.
because we're only talking about going down 3 feet
Yeah.
through that.
So, you will use an auger to do a test hole at the detention basin.
Correct.
Basin area, great. Does anyone have any questions right now? Because before we move on, I'd like to schedule a site visit. How is everyone's Monday night a week from tonight?
That's fine.
Does that work?
Next Monday night,
Yeah, the 29th.
I think.
It's the second to last day of the fiscal year. Is that
So you get paid the big bucks?
No, it means we work the big hours.
That is always a
That's fine. If it's in the evening, I will be
Yeah.
available on the 29th.
6 o'clock.
Yeah, can we say
6 o'clock.
6?
We have another week before the next meeting if
Right, this is a
we
3
could
week.
push it forward to June.
So the options, thank you, the options are, it could be July 6th,
I'm
or
on vacation that
June.
first week. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd
a lot of
rather
people
you
aren't
be
be-
there.
Mm.
I can't make the 29th.
Okay. Who can make the 29th? Who can make the 6th? Sorry, the engineer wins.
That's fair. Go for it.
I'm really sorry. I'll go out with you on the 6th if you want. Okay,
So we'll
so
do the 29th.
29th, Where's a better place,
Well-
would it be better for us to meet at East Green
East Green
Street
Street,
and walk
honestly,
through?
and walk right
That's
through.
better parking?
Much better parking at the end of East Green Street.
Okay.
And walk right through the field and.
To be honest, you may want to park in my driveway.
If you don't mind,
No.
Ashley, should I? Okay, well, that's one less car.
Pick me up on the way too. I mean, we're in East Street.
Oh, yeah,
Or
sure.
right on, I mean, Clark Street.
You fit in the car seat, right?
Also, can you just send us all?
Yeah.
What?
Can you just send us all on a plane if you're doing this?
Sorry, let me do this now.
Driveway.
Wait a minute, what did that just, I need to edit this again.
All right.
Okay, it's not multi-event.
Oh, we've got something else to do on 29th.
What?
Nothing.
Sorry, I need to get this in here, or my brain will not brain. Okay. I'll send it to you guys later, if anyone needs it. All right, so, there being no further questions from the commission, I'll now open it to the public. Please introduce yourself for the record before you pose your questions. And in the event anyone is unfamiliar, please keep your questions to the context of the Wetlands Protection Act. Are there any questions, comments from the public? Mr. Dolan?
Surprise, surprise, right? My name is Gary Golis. I'm a butter to the project. I live at 405 East Street. And an awful lot has changed even since this afternoon, so I'm not quite sure what to address. I'll keep it very basic. I have a handout for all the commissioners. A lot of it has to do with the culvert issue, which now may not even be an issue at this point. Basically, 20, 30 years ago, there wasn't a lot of information about culverts crossings. We now know a lot more, and there's a lot of reference material available. And I've been speaking with the trust, and we're going to try to get together and if anything is done to try to make it more environmentally friendly. Right now, it's acting as a barrier to wildlife. But, you know, again, there's probably the best and most basic information I know of to refer to is this right here, is the Massachusetts River and Stream Crossing Standards. It's only like about 29 pages long. It's readily available on the internet, and it cuts right to the chase. There's other information that's about 700 pages long, which I'm sure the trust doesn't, or the commission doesn't want to deal with. But it may not even be an issue at this point. The other issue was the actual planting issue of invasive, which now seems to be a non-issue. So that leaves my third concern is the how the wetland delineation was performed, in particular flags, I guess they're 101, 102, 103. The part that kind of juts out, kind of abuts my backyard.
I mean, this area here? This area, Gary? Or this area?
Yeah, no, the as you're right before the switchback occurs, right after it, I would say, there's flagging that's actually staked. It's not actually flagged. It's the stakes that are in the field.
In the field, right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm just curious how
Right.
you arrived at that spot for the delineation.
Right. Charles Dowshy did the delineation. So Chuck uses vegetation and soils when he does a delineation on that.
Mhm.
So that's how he came up with, you know, these lines here.
And
relative
Chuck
to-
is as good as it comes. I've been in the field with more than once, but I sort of have to disagree with that delineation, and it only works to the benefit of the trust. There's some pictures in the handout. Number one of the vegetation, and the vegetation is clearly upland. It's all multiflora rose, it's virgin bower. There's some sensitive fern thrown in there, but as you know, sensitive fern grows everywhere. So if you're basing it upon vegetation,
Are
that's
these the
upland.
photos you're talking
Yeah,
about?
and if you're looking at, and the reason I just picked the bottom one, because it's one of these staked boundaries, and it shows multi-floor roads growing right there, and as most people in this room will know, multi-floor roads is not something that's associated with wetlands, it's associated with uplands. So, and all due respect to Chuck, and I really mean that because he's great.
Yep.
If you base it upon the soils, the second picture you see there is a auger core I took, and that's probably about 13, 14 inches down, clearly upland soil. So I don't know why he flagged that. And you know, it's something that we can look at
Yep.
at a site visit.
Sure.
But I think it would work to the trust advantage to relook at that area. And I think a lot of it could be taken right away and considered upland rather than wetland.
Okay.
The hydrology, it's non-existent. Certainly, it's a disturbed site, so you can't base it upon. But there's been years where it hasn't been mowed, and the same stuff keeps on coming up: the multi-floor rows, the Bridge and Bower, and the sensitive fern. But again, I wouldn't even consider putting that as wetland.
Could you ask Mr. Daci if he has any field notes
Sure.
from his delineation?
Sure, I can do that.
That would be
Yep.
helpful, and we'll also
can do
take a
that.
look at that particular boundary. Well, we'll take a look at the boundaries. And so not just that area, but any area that he flagged.
Mm-hmm.
The other flag, I didn't even look further back in the field because that's so far away, it doesn't seem to have any bearing on the project. But the other flagging along the actual stream, that's really straightforward. I mean, there's skunk cabbage in there, and the hybrid soils are pretty obvious. So the only, certainly let's look at everything, but the only thing I have a question about is that little 101, 102, 103 area.
Okay.
And, basically, if it stands the way it is, half my yard is now in the buffer. So I have a little bit of a stake in that.
You have an existing yard, at least.
Well, I do have a project, that I'm going to be doing back there, so, if there's a reason why it's been flagged that way, we can figure that out.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any
That was
other
it.
questions, comments, concerns from the
Just had a
public? Yes,
question.
sir.
My name's Marty Klein. I'm a board member of Pascoma Conservation Trust, and I guess I'm project manager for this project.
Okay.
So just so I can keep the organization informed, could you just give me a rough idea of what steps we're looking at until we hopefully get approval to move forward?
So our next step, and since we've scheduled a site visit and have some open-ended questions, is that this will be continued to our next hearing date, which is July
13th.
Thank you, 13th.
Something like I know.
I thought you knew. And hopefully between now and our site visit next Monday, Mark can ask
Sure.
Daci if he has any field notes that he can provide electronically, is fine. Also, bigger picture is the plans need to be revised to remove references to the culvert rehab.
Right.
Only because when we approve a set of plans, it's the approved set of plans, and it's much neater from a regulatory perspective and much less confusing. Not that you won't have very close oversight, but if someone sees a culvert replacement on a plan, they may just get overzealous.
Correct.
So those are the major steps. I think
So potentially, we could get approval at the July 13th meeting?
Yep, that's a possibility.
Okay,
And then once the hearing closes, if the order, we have 21 days to issue the order.
Uh-huh.
And then there's a 10-day appeal period, during which time you can record the order at your own risk. It has to be recorded against the deed. But it's a 10 business day appeal period, and if someone, if Mass DEP doesn't like the order of conditions that we approve, they can issue a superseding order
How often does that happen?
almost never.
Okay.
But it's a possibility. So really, you're looking at 20, up to 21 days for us to issue the paperwork with whatever conditions we deem necessary from close of the hearing. So hopefully we'll be able to address, and actually, Mark, you may want to hold off on revised plans if there's a possibility that the line could be
The boundary,
modified.
sure.
That would just save a step. It's up to you.
Yes,
It's up to you.
I think it would be a good idea if we held off until at least after the site visit
Which is just next Monday.
next Monday.
Mhm.
Do we have
And
a
it still
time
gives
on
us
that?
2 weeks.
Yeah,
Do we have a time on that? I'm
6
sorry.
p.m.
6 p.m., thank
Yep.
you. I should just look out my window and see
You
if
could
the cars
just
show
see
up.
we'll just beat the horn.
Thank you.
So I think, yeah, and then that gives us a couple of weeks before your meeting on the 13th to make
Right.
any changes
Right.
needed to it.
Just more than enough time.
Yes.
Well, could be, depending on everything else, but,
Mhm.
so with that, I don't have any further questions tonight. Does anyone else?
So,
Could I just ask
Yeah.
one more question? Is the commission comfortable with just taking the culvert crossing out of this plan?
It's not our decision. The scope of work, if they, for funding or whatever reasons, have to eliminate a component of it, it's not our discretion to tell them they have to keep it in there.
Right.
Obviously, ideally, they'd have enough money to do
Yeah.
all the work at once with a bridge and call it
So
a
yeah,
day, but-
we had talked about, long-term, next phase or whatever. The ideal thing is to remove both culverts completely, reestablish a stream channel, and to put a walking bridge across there. CPA is, granted the funds for this project. They've got a lot to do. They're also building, picnic areas and pathways, and so, it's, and it's all governed by those funds, so that down the road, I foresee that, yes, they could go back to the CPA and ask for additional funds to do that, but I really don't think they have the monies right now to do that, because it's not only coming before the commission, but now Army Corps of Engineers is,
Preconstruction notification.
right, notifications and yes, right, self-reporting, and so they're taking jurisdiction now of every little
Well, if you're,
thing.
that's another conversation for another day.
Right.
But,
Let
so.
that-
And-
That passageway over the culvert is strong enough for foot traffic,
Right.
certainly for our purposes, but it's questionable if you wanted to put a tractor or something else on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I can show you the culverts.
Like the front page.
You got the front page picture? Right. I mean, it's about
It's a
4
typical
feet.
culvert.
Right, typical culvert, but what's rotted out of it, and of course,
Natural culvert.
yeah, is the bottom sections of it. So you're talking about, maybe 2 feet at the most, and then going in roughly 4 feet
And how-
as you're going through, and then
How
a little
wide
higher.
is the stream channel going into it and coming out of it? What's the full width, Gary, do you know?
It's,
That was one of the questions I was going to have, because
Right.
again, according to the recommendations, the culvert siding should be 1.2 times the basal width, and I really don't know if that's the
Right.
case.
I mean,
right, it varies.
it's
I
beyond
mean,
our
it's a
purview.
couple feet wide, it meanders through there, so that, you take a look at that.
I guess what it comes down to is that discretion regarding scope of work is not ours to dictate.
Right.
And
I would feel, again, just as just an individual and just my opinion, is that the trust would be better off not putting any money using the current plan that's here to repair the culvert, because to me it's throwing good money after bad. If they're going to address the culvert, there's much better ways of doing it, and more expensive ways, unfortunately. But it doesn't address, it's not an environmentally friendly repair. So why put even $10 into it when maybe further down the line with more CPA money, more donations from people, people could get behind this and say, wow, we want to do this the right way, let's make it environmentally friendly.
Right.
Yeah, it'd be easier to get the funds once the people start coming in there and
Right.
see how.
Right.
what a nice
Nice to
spot it
see.
is.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, the nice thing about it is that from East Green Street, the work that we have now, this is a more established and stable, thank goodness, crossing
Yes.
coming in here. And there's not heavy, truck excavators. You're only coming in there with small excavators to add the stone to the paths. So that I envision that the work in this area will be limited to staying on the easterly side of the brook. This area here, because we probably have some staging areas in the middle to come off of East Green Street. Coming through.
Right now, I cross over the crossing, and I won't tell anybody what I weigh, but I weigh a little bit. And I'm sitting on my lawn tractor, and I have no doubt that I could make it easily. I could probably go across with 5 of those lawn tractors. So it can hold a lot of weight. At least if you see my tractor in the water, then I miscalculated.
Right.
I guess the last thing I have before we talk about moving on is, do you have a cross-section of the slope, of the filled slope above the wetland boundary? And I'm only wondering, because what you have proposed for an erosion and sedimentation controlled area is a wattle
Yes.
of sorts,
Yes.
filter sock, and
Yeah, we did
It's-
I guess this is the best, we don't have a real cross-section profile.
yeah, I guess I'm concerned that with all that temporarily unstabilized fill, that a typical
That's a great point.
wattle could be overtopped.
Okay.
And I would prefer to see a silt fence behind it, to at least add that height in front of it or behind it, I don't know. Just
Yeah,
because we do get 2-inch rainstorms that
Yes.
can be poorly timed for site stabilization. Not that I sound. That's just a.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
add that.
All right, so that said, would anyone care to make a motion to continue to our July 13th meeting
I'll make a motion that we continue the hearing to July 13th,
at 6 p.m.?
6 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, so we'll see you Monday night. We'll park in Gary's driveway. Hopefully as much as possible.
So,
Yes.
Mark, are you gonna talk about?
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Let
That'll be
us,
the next thing on the agenda.
Can I have the bound report back, Dan? I'll give it to you tomorrow. Okay, please. Okay. You know what. So, next up, request for certificate of compliance, Escalma Conservation Trust, Brickyard Brook Conservation Area Culvert Replacement, DEP file number 151280.
So, I was not at your last meeting when we had a discussion regarding this, but from what I understand, there's some additional plantings that were requested to be done.
Gary, you want this?
Slope stabilization.
Yep.
Thanks, Gary. We'll see you next week.
And so I have some pictures to show the commission that I took today, as well as what Jay took.
Yeah, this was back on the 19th.
Okay, these are from
By the way,
today.
Jay, thank you for that wonderful photo tour.
Yeah, that's right.
Much better.
Right. Nice big pictures, Jay.
Go big or go home.
So, in the ideal world, I guess, because I don't know, many of you were on the commission when Treehouse and White Brook Meadows was filed.
Actually,
with the
none of us were on the
Yeah, none of
commission
you.
when that went through.
David Follis at DEP said that you could not have two DEP file numbers on the same piece of property.
My understanding is geographic footprint,
Right,
so.
right. So in that case, that's why all those lots have got different. Initially, we had prepared, because there's lots of different building
Yeah.
sites, we had prepared, as well as like Paul Street for Garcia and so forth, we had prepared individual notice of intents for lots and submitted them to DEP, and DEP said, no, you can't do that. One DEP file number for one site. And at the time, it was the entire subdivision site. And that, that's where all the headaches came, when you had to get releases and come back for partial releases, and it's a royal pain in the neck. But DEP didn't want to issue, paperwork. So, in the ideal world, I would have loved to have waited to request the certificate of compliance for this project, because each day more vegetation is coming into that slope area. Even the brook channel, you can start seeing vegetation coming up through it. The jewel weed is overtaking everything. The skunk cabbage is way up the slope on it. But I felt that, DEP may have an issue with two DEP file numbers on the same piece of property. We have different addresses, so the East Green Street and East Street, so maybe that's what...
Maybe that helped.
That helped. But each day it's getting more vegetated and more stable. It was always a steep embankment through there. You have some groundwater weeps coming out of especially the upper slope against the cul-de-sac area. And it's just going to take a little bit of time to, as you can see some of the pictures further up, probably Jay's too. You can barely see the stream.
Right.
Because it's so vegetated through there.
So this held up over that 2+ inch rainstorm.
Right.
And then again yesterday morning's downpour.
And
That was a heavy, steady,
Correct.
and it was also long and steady.
Correct.
So.
And there was no erosion when I was there today.
And that was our concern, that that vertical face would be susceptible to erosion, especially during a big rain event.
Right.
So with the continued revegetation and the fact that it's held up to 2 rainstorms in less than 2 weeks.
So it's repaired or fixed or
No, removed would be
removed?
the next step, actually.
Trouble that I see with trying to put some more plantings on that slope is really the only place you can stand is in the brook, which disturbs the brook.
I think the slope is headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
Bill and I and Garrett Stover worked on that.
Thank you.
We filled in as much as we could.
Yeah.
We just have to wait.
Yeah, no, and
And it was coming in by itself, surprisingly, which really surprised me. A little bit was coming in already, so we just helped it along.
Right. And if you look at the soils in that steep slope, you can see all the root mass and vegetation that's in there, just jam-packed. And so next year, it's going to look like a jungle like the rest of the stream bed.
which would be ideal.
Yeah.
So, does anyone have any further concerns?
No, I think it looks great.
Okay. Would anyone care to make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance? Anyone feel like?
I will make a motion. Everything complies to the project.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved, your paperwork will be ready
Okay.
within 21 days because I don't have it.
Okay.
It wasn't just a motion, that was a movement.
One after another.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
So
See you next Monday.
Yes. Monday, 6 o'clock. Sorry.
Actually,
No?
those are certified mail receipts. Thanks.
Yes.
Correct.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Receipts. Okay.
All right, well, I don't know on what date our letter to Mr. Gall regarding 37 South Street was received, because there's no date on the card, so I'll have to look that up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You all very much for coming. We'll see you next Monday night, if not on the 13th.
What time is that?
6 o'clock Monday night.
It's coming up.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the meeting will be 6 o'clock on the 13th as well.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, John. All right.
Sorry, I choked on that motion.
All right. So
Okay.
when was the letter? The letter was dated May 18th.
The June
sorry.
8th.
June 8th. Okay.
And it was sent by certified mail. We have our certified mail card back. However, we do not have a date on it, so I will have to look that up on the Postal Service's website. Thank you, Postal Service. But to that end, there has been no response from Mr. Gall.
He's here. No, wasn't he? No, that was someone else. Sorry.
No.
No, definitely not.
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
See this guy. I've never seen him before.
Yes.
You'll have your chance at some point, I'm sure. All right, moving on. Compliance updates, active projects, open permits. Mount Tom Estates, DEP file number 151248, set to expire in October 2015. No updates.
I don't know which one that is anymore.
No.
That's the former Kulig condo development property project. Now you know which one it
Thank
is. You're so welcome. Paul Street Extension, Jillian Estates, 151269. I emailed David Gartzka and I copied Mark Reed regarding an update on the status of work in the buffer zone that the commission I signed off on the building permits for, and there has not been a response yet.
You see anything going on down there?
No?
Nope.
Okay. Pleasant Street Mills, 151273, Phase 2 has commenced, and they have been timely with their SWIP inspection reports, including those after 1-inch storm events, rain events. So it's weekly, and then the SWIP requires if there's a 1-inch or greater precipitation event that they also perform an inspection within 24 hours. Is that right?
Yep.
I'm looking at you, SWIP guy.
No, it's a 1/4 inch.
Is it only a 1/4
I
inch?
think it's 1/4 inch.
Okay.
24 hours.
And they did it. And they did it when there was 2 inches or more, so. So I had inspected their erosion and sedimentation controls before the last meeting. And we've been getting the weekly reports, so they're in good shape there. They're in compliance. No response from Mr. Gracia regarding Glendale Loudville West Pomeroy.
There was still a little water in that same area before Sunday's rain, so I don't know.
Okay, 151271. Try again since he wants to talk to us about.
We were deceivers.
Yes. Okay. Nashwanik Mills, 15 Carter Street. They have not responded to emails with reports.
That's correct. There's been no reports.
Can you email them? It's your turn. Can you email them?
I think they're done now. Do we think they're done? The spider.
Well, in the last minutes, we said that it's ready for certificate of compliance. And we were in contact with them to see if they can get that certificate of compliance in.
Yeah, we didn't do that.
Okay, so I'll do that. I need their information. So just send it to me.
Okay.
What are you talking about?
Okay. Well,
That's fine.
I will. Nashwanik Pond, Promenade Park, 151278, it's open. There's been no movement toward a certificate of compliance.
No,
And
because-
Jessica's not here tonight.
Well, she said she wanted to wait until the grass was growing.
That's right. And it actually, we went and saw it after the last meeting, and it hadn't spreaded through, like, you could still see more erosion control blanket than spreaded vegetation, but it was taking,
Cool.
I feel like it's like 50% now, green.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like you said.
except for the kids run down.
Yeah. Something's
On
on
one spot.
it.
I've also been monitoring the interaction of expensive deck wood and ice cream.
It's really hard wood. It's made to be, it's perfect for that application.
Yes.
So.
The application of ice cream.
Yes. We just need more people with dogs to go down there so the dogs will clean it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Call it patina.
Call it patina.
That's right.
No updates on the Oxbow, although Terry Smith is in town for the next item, Town Beach National Pond Fisherman Access Facility.
They had some things staged there last week.
Yeah, they, I believe, installed their ocean sedimentation controls, so does anyone have an opportunity to go over there
I can
this
go
week?
there.
That'd be great. So. Okay. Next item on the agenda, general business meeting minutes approval, June 8th, 2015.
Can I interject for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, so you gave me this assignment for 500 East Street for there's like the tree cutting that's gonna be happening.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to talk about that next meeting?
Well, hold on. Well, let's do the meeting minutes
We
approval.
can do it under correspondence.
Yeah.
It's- I already have it written down, two things to talk about.
Awesome. So,
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from June 8th.
Second.
all those in favor? So moved. Okay. Under correspondence, the commission received a forest cutting plan from the Fedor Family Trust regarding property at 500 East Street for the cleanup of microburst damage.
So I did some investigating, and it is true, there is rare species on the site. They did contact
National Heritage?
National Heritage, and they said that there's gonna be a take
Ooh.
in, what does that mean?
It means that their activities have the potential to either significantly alter the habitat of a state-listed species so that that state-listed species could not survive in that habitat in that location, or that they may actually impact an individual or individuals of that species, whatever the species may be. So
We don't know what the species.
So like if you're working in turtle habitat, you have to do turtle sweeps to make sure that your equipment doesn't crush a turtle. And so I don't know what they have mapped there.
Yeah, they did make an actual statement of like what should be done. It said off-road operation of motorized vehicles shall be between October 15th and March 31st of any year. Yeah, it does sound like turtles.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like
But I
that.
can't see why they would say crushing or, I don't know, off-road
Could it be
operation.
snakes though? Because they're endangered snakes all over that.
I don't know if they're that low.
What about like bird habitat?
Yeah, the birds don't like crawl along the ground. They would fly away.
It could be nesting. But theoretically, the nesting habitat is already down
Yeah.
if they're cleaning up microburst damage.
Did that microburst get it? It's like, wow, what is that?
Now, just like the beavers don't have to, the microburst doesn't have to plan ahead either. Okay.
So I actually have never ran into this before, having a take. So what do you do in that case?
We don't do anything. That's natural heritage, and the feedors have to work that out.
With national
And if they said they can avoid a take by
doing that?
performing the activity in that window,
Does that mean they have to file something with them? Or what happens?
I would think
I
so.
would think so, because
Sure,
that would be
Natural
like a
Heritage will send them a letter telling
Yeah,
them.
that's natural heritage's.
Yeah, okay.
So
So
not
not
ours.
something else then.
So are there,
All
based
right.
on
site mapping, are there any wetlands?
There are not any wetlands. This is a super intense map, very colored.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can't look at
There's
this.
so many patterns, right?
Cool.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff on the site. Okay, so pretty much majority of it was natural heritage.
So all of this?
Yeah.
This dark yellow outline?
Yep.
Okay.
This whole like section over here, that's the whole map.
Oh my gosh.
What the
And
site
the
is
project
gonna be.
location, so it's all in there, yeah.
Yeah, but then the other side of the property is zone 2, which I don't know what to do with
That doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
It doesn't mean anything in and of itself, because 90+% of East Hampton is mapped as zone 2.
Okay.
So if they were within Wetlands Protection Act jurisdiction and they triggered stormwater management, then that would bump them into treating the first inch of runoff as opposed to ½ inch.
Something like that.
So there are not wetlands identified? Is that
No
what we just
wetlands.
confirmed?
There's like little holes in the other.
Oh, yeah, Mount
whole
Thomas
area,
Limited.
but there's no wetlands. Yeah.
All right, so I think they're required to send a copy of it to us, regardless of whether or not they're in our jurisdiction. But I think that's all we have to do is receive it and perform our due diligence, and it doesn't seem like there's any jurisdiction.
Is it, so it's natural heritage, not the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife?
It's part of the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, but it's NHESP is really the.
Natural heritage, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome, thank you so much.
Just permitting information
No,
right now.
it's actually, that was good stuff.
Can you see the map?
So while you're looking at the map, I'm going to
We want to talk about South Street beers?
no, because we haven't had anything filed. I sent a copy of the, I sent a copy of the schedule to Jim Gresham, and balls, same as with East Street. It's not within our purview to prompt people to take projects on, whether it's the city or a private individual, unless there's enforcement action necessary. And this has to go to Jess. I need to. So. Colleen and Jessica, would you please add your information to the the map list, and I will give it back to Jessica Allen. I know, it's fascinating. And if anyone is interested in the fundamentals for conservation commissioners.
Oh, there's a certificate training course.
Yeah. We can talk about it. Okay, so what is this?
What is our training budget? We still have a training budget, it just got reduced.
Don't have a copy of our budget.
That's fine. I know we have a training budget. I think it's
It's on the
just
file cabinet over there. It's like a couple $100 bucks or something.
Yeah.
I doesn't even know what I'm looking at. 228, yeah, I'm keeping this. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
the cabinets unlocked?
They are. Are you still filing?
Oh, I was just gonna look and,
Oh.
we know what happens when I start filing.
Yeah, I end up filing. I say that. So, the only other.
couple.
You were really
What?
Huh?
What?
I didn't hear what? Okay,
We're going through
ZBA.
correspondence right now, right?
Application for
Special
28 Northampton Street. Special use, business use special permit. Where is 28 Northampton Street? I need a map.
It's, let's go on to it. I don't know.
Northampton Street's it's 28. Don't know.
That's
Do you
close to the
have
rotary,
Wi-Fi?
right?
Yeah, it is. I think.
You
I'm
think
trying to.
I think that one Northampton Street would be at the rotary, so 28's not even to the river yet.
Campus is within 200 feet of the river.
Well,
And regardless, what are they doing? Renting for web design company usage.
so
It's probably within 200 feet of the river.
Well, these all come to us. Two owners, main two in the office.
It's kind of like pointing to where True Beer was. So
Oh,
someone else
you
is
know
going
what?
there doing something.
You know the address of True Beer, huh?
No, I have a map that shows me the building.
Darn. I think Jay is absolutely right because that's the entrance to the DPW yard.
Right, that's right.
Highway department yard. So I guess the comment is if no exterior
keep talking all that.
in 200-foot riverfront area and or 100-foot buffer zone, then no wetlands protection act jurisdiction. Singers. All right. Anything else? I'm on vacation the last week in July. I think we have a meeting July. Dates?
19, 20, 27, 28.
Yeah, I'm on vacation for the second meeting in July.
I'm on vacation for both meetings in July.
I'm on vacation for the 13th,
Is this I don't want to be in
14th, I
charge?
should say.
Yes. I
Yes,
don't wanna
not
be in
it. That's
charge.
not it. Hey Jay, what are you
No, I already
doing?
did it. I already did it.
No, I.
Took your fingers
All right. So first of all, we're gonna have to have someone take minutes on the 13th.
I can attempt to do that.
Okay. I'll bring my laptop.
Okay.
They saw me. Okay. And who will
13th, no.
take on the
It's actually
position?
the 14th, isn't it? Because the 11th is Saturday, so the 13th.
Who will chair the second July meeting? I called him much.
I second that.
That's
All in
me.
favor?
An experienced member of the commission.
You are the most experienced member after Melissa.
But I pay the least attention.
All right.
Okay,
So
this maintenance number.
problem
Chaired
solved.
by Dan Buttrick.
All right. A motion to close the
Are you gonna
meeting.
do the 28th?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Thank you.
So, I went to a motion. I did the same.